Thanks, and welcome to tonight's first webinar that I've delivered in this format. Like I said, transitioning from Facebook Lives, and I hope you enjoy these. So tonight we're going to be discussing non-surgical facelifting, and let me just do that. Actually, might be even better. There we go. So tonight we're going to be talking about non-surgical facelifting and, the history, or not the history, but financially where the market has been, where it's going. Not only that, I'm going to touch on the actual different modalities. So radiofrequency, microcurrent, plasma. We hadn't advertised HIFU, but as I was putting this together, I'm thinking, well, it's actually a great non-surgical way to lift, the face. So I've added HIFU in there and EMS, so Electro Muscular Stimulation as well. So we'll touch up on these. Some of you might have these devices. Some of you might be thinking of purchasing devices. Some of you, this might be completely new. So like I said, hopefully you get something out of today's webinar. It will go for a little bit longer than our usual Facebook Lives. They will go for an hour. So let's get to it. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat box. At the end, I will open up for everyone just to, ask verbal questions if you prefer verbal questions rather than using your chat box as well. All right. So just a little bit about us first and foremost, for those of you who have never seen any of the team or myself in action. And you don't know who we are. So TADLI, the Australian Dermal and Laser Institute, basically our vision is to raise the standard of skin education and technology, and also to bridge the gap between beauty, dermal, and also healthcare practitioners. And that way we're ensuring an integrated approach across the aesthetics and also the beauty and dermatology industry. It's really important that you know what my values are. So for me, when I deliver, I like to deliver, whether it's quality education, devices, or skincare, that yes, it does come with lots of quality and thought behind it. I never deliver something that I'm not too sure about, because at the end of the day, it is our reputation. Hopefully, we instill a lot of trust in the industry. So I believe you can trust us and what we say and what we do. We deliver it with passion. For those of you who know me, I'm very passionate about skin and education. And it's always done with a lot of kindness, because there's definitely not enough kindness, I believe, in the world. So that to me is really important. And the amazing thing is my team, we're all females. There aren't, not that I'm sexist or anything, but we are females. We have clinical experience. We're all either beauty, dermal, or dermal therapists or dermal clinicians. And we've even got a nurse on board as well. So we've been there, we've been in clinic, and we educate from our, not just textbook, but we educate from clinical experience. And I think that's really important. And it's different to how other manufacturers or any manufacturers will deliver information on their devices, or other educators as well. Of course, everyone's unique, and I'm sure everyone's got their strengths. So our brands, we've actually extended our portfolio, if you want to call that, into devices as well. It made sense that we educate on different manufacturers, whether it's, Venus or Elma or Global Beauty Group or Spectrum or the Aesthetic Bureau. It made sense that we also deliver information or deliver training, not just for them, but we also sell, Renee. Hi, Renee. Can you put yourself?
Hi.
Hello, can you put yourself on mute, please? Sorry.
No, that's okay. Sorry.
That's okay. Make it known Renee's in the room. So it made sense that not only did we educate on other manufacturers' devices, but it made sense that we also have our own devices. So for those of you who didn't realize, we now sell a whole array of devices too, and it comes with our, and I want to say this very humbly, with our award-winning education and support and so forth. So we do sell a device called the Eve, which is a microcurrent electrostimulation, hydrodermabrasion, microdermabrasion device. We sell the Apollo Duet, which is radiofrequency and cryotherapy. We've got HIFU, we've got plasma fibroblasting, that's another jet plasma and plasma, LED needling. And of course, we've got our very own skincare, which has taken me years to formulate with a cosmetic formulator. And of course, we are about to launch, probably in the next month or so, another range that's from Spain called Lara Medical. So lots of things happening. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Nancy Abdu. I have a degree in education, again, very different to other educators in the industry. So my education, when I deliver it, it is really designed for you to understand and for you to, I suppose, be able to relate to it and transfer that education to your team. And if not your team, then it's to your clients. So I do tailor it around your needs and around your devices. I am also a beauty therapist, and I've done a whole heap of skin courses along the way. I used to have a chain of clinics with my sisters, of course, so 15 locations across Melbourne, but now we've sold them, and I've been brave enough to open up a new clinic. Hopefully that'll be open in the next 2 to 4 weeks in partnership with Yasmin, who's a cosmetic nurse as well. So going back in there, which will help with my training and delivering also clinical information. Been educating for 12 years, and humbly, like I said before, I've been finalist and also have been awarded Best Educator for a series of years actually now. So I think it's been 4 years, 21, 22, 23, 24, we've won all these awards. So super excited and super proud of our achievements. Enough said. So let's talk about the Australian aesthetic industry. And what I'll do is I will show my face, because so you can see me, what I'm doing. So with the Australian aesthetic industry, it's actually a huge market, and I'm going to cheat a little bit. I actually took some notes, but it is in terms of aesthetics. Let me quickly do this, and I should have prepared this earlier. My fault. Learning here. And Effie, I'm just going to mute you. Sorry. I can't see presenters' notes, so that's a learning curve. Right, let me stop sharing 1 second. Won't let me do that. All right, so back in 2021, the industry recorded a revenue of $3,391 million, which basically equates to $3.3 billion. And it's expected to reach 3.7 billion by 2026. So that's a 0.4 billion increase. Skincare products in particular have shown considerable interest, generating 2.1 billion in 2022. The cosmetics and toiletry wholesaling industry in Australia has also had growth, and that market is estimated at $8 billion. And an income growth of 2.7 over the last 5 years. I think COVID had helped that in terms of skincare and people wanting to treat themselves at home. But nonetheless, that's actually a huge figure. And I'm really happy that we're part of this, because even though the economy might be a little bit slow, it is almost, and I'm not going to say we're 100% recession proof, because it depends on your strategy, your structure and marketing, but we're almost recession proof. So when the economy takes a bit of a hard dive, we take a little bit of a dive, but nonetheless, the figures are there. It's a huge market, and we're all able to have a little bit of that, a share in that pie, if you like. In the last 5 years, there's been a huge growth, like I said, following the pandemic. But there's going to be another increase in aesthetic and aesthetic devices. So if you have a device, you're in the right arena, because that is supposed to be a rapidly growing market as well in terms of devices and non-surgical treatments. So there's a rise in that as well. What's the expectation? Do we have an expectation? There's meant to be an expected growth of 6% in aesthetic devices itself, or aesthetic treatments, and that globally will reach $580 billion by 2027. That's globally, and that's, like I said, 6% per year. So, like I said, if you have a device, you're doing the right thing. Let's admit a few more people. Okay, so I'll share my screen again. All right, so that is the projection that we've got there. Now, with surgery, and a lot of people have undergone surgery or have opted for surgery, you know, getting facelifting and surgical approaches. It could be even for the body as well. The problem with that is there's obviously a whole heap of risks. There's a risk of complications. It could be complication while they're under the anesthetic, or anesthetic complications, complications of infection. There's a whole range of things that can go wrong, and that includes of not actually getting the result or an over-treatment. And I've seen that a number of times where someone's had surgery and it's just, they're overdone. With surgery, there's obviously a longer recovery. So there's a much more, you know, wound healing recovery process. The swelling, the edema, the erythema is actually there. The bruising is there for several weeks, and the swelling can last easily over 8 weeks. The cost could be inhibitive. So to have surgery now, and again, I don't know why this is, but post-COVID, I feel like surgery costs has gone up. But nonetheless, you're probably looking in the vicinity of probably $20,000+ just for a facelift. There are PDO threads. There are other ways to reduce that cost, or to get a mini facelift, but nonetheless, it is still expensive. So what's happening is people are actually now going overseas, which is a bit risky, because when they come back here, insurance, if something good goes wrong, they are not insured. And if I'm not wrong, the hospitals will not want to even see you, because they don't want to take on somebody else's problem. It's too much of a risk. So the cost is a real issue. And like I said, you know, when we're over-treating, or if someone has had a surgical procedure and it's too much, how can it be reversed? And some procedures can be reversed, but a lot of the times they're not reversible, and of course they're permanent. So there's a lot of people who are scared of that as well. Of course, it's invasive. I'm not going to go on about that. There is pain and discomfort associated, and we're talking intense pain that, you know, sometimes they'll need medication or some type of drug to help with the pain and the discomfort. Some people are just scared of surgery, and I don't blame them. So it's a really big deal, especially if they're getting, you know, something done to their face. I mean, eyelid surgery, or, you know, a nose surgery for their nose might be a little procedure, but when you're getting, you know, lifting done, where they having to cut all the way and lift that SMAS and remove skin, it's a big deal. And so people are scared. And of course, I already said about longer recovery, but there's intense downtime where they can't go to work for an extended period because of, you know, the way they look. More people are opting for a natural look as well. So, you know, rather than that plastic fantastic or radical facelifting, more people are looking for a more natural enhancement. And we know now that there are other effective alternatives, and it's not necessarily just, there are other effective alternatives, and it's not just surgical or surgery that they need to undergo. We've got a whole host of devices that we can use that will deliver amazing results if you know how to use the device to its fullest potential, and if you know how to also combine modalities to get enhanced outcomes and, you know, superior results. So these are the things, the first, what have we got there? 8 things that will actually inhibit people from actually having surgery, which is actually not a bad thing, because then, you know, they'll actually come to us. So with your non-surgical approach, I'm trying to just minimize. Melinda, can you mute yourself, please? Sorry. Okay, so with your, like I said, non-surgical, those options provide a lower risk profile. It's a lot more convenient. You know, a client can come in during their lunchtime, have a procedure. We'll put a bit of minimal makeup on for most of the services that we provide, and then of course they can leave during that lunchtime. So it's really convenient. There's less commitment in terms of, you know, time and downtime and their resources. And it also aligns well with the modern lifestyle and also the expectations that society has of having minimal downtime. What I'm going to do is, participants, I wonder if I can mute everyone. I don't know how to do it. Okay, Roz is saying we have a client who is still healing from half lift surgery, and this is easily 9 to 10 months. Wow, that's full on. That's a long time, and who has that time to have a little bit of swelling or residual edema and erythema, right? So now we're actually have a choice. You know, the choice between surgical and non-surgical procedures obviously depends on the individual's needs and what type of, you know, outcomes they're wanting, what their expectations are, and of course the specific condition that's being addressed. I might leave that chat open. LED, but she's not consistent. Need to do lots of LED. We can talk about that later. So with non-surgical intervention, there's, like I said, there's various aesthetic devices typically involve creating controlled trauma, and it could be either mechanical, thermal, or a chemical trauma. So when we're creating a controlled wound, obviously that the body goes back into that, you know, wound healing phase. And we do that in order to get either some skin rejuvenation or collagen induction happening, or skin tightening, or it could even be for, you know, like the fine lines and wrinkles, which obviously is rejuvenation. So essentially, like I said, we're creating this trauma, and your body goes through 3 different phases. The first phase is the inflammatory phase, and that will last anywhere from 1 to 3 days. So if they have a little bit of that inflammation or swelling, typically it's no more than 3 days. It's not weeks. And then once we have that inflammatory response, we then go into our proliferation. The proliferation phase, it peaks between day 4 and day 10, and then it starts to subside between day 21 and day 28. We then have that proliferation subsiding. So during the proliferation phase, that's when you've got all your different growth factors being proliferate in proliferation, they're being released. And of course, along with growth factors, you have your cytokines and your fibroblast releasing the collagen, elastin, and your glycosaminoglycans. So that happens in that first, like I said, between day 4 and say day 21 to day 28. And then, of course, we have maturation, which can take anywhere up to 2 years. But typically, we see a lot of maturation and remodeling happening between day 90 and 180 days. And this is where collagen type 3 is replaced by collagen type 1, which is cross-linked. It becomes a triple helix. It's laid down in a really uniform way, and we get a reduction in fine lines and wrinkles. The other thing is what controlled trauma will do is by inducing heat into, whether it's the SMAS, and I'll explain what that is, whether it's the SMAS or whether it's our dermis or the epidermal dermal junction, by releasing heat into the skin. And it could be over a long period or a short period. Again, I'll explain what I mean by that. But what we're doing is we're causing the collagen bundles to shrink. Very much like our favorite, say, jeans or your jumper, and you put it in the dryer, naturally it actually just will shrink. And so there's 2 mechanisms of action when we come to deliver controlled thermal heat to our client's skin. Like I said, one is that windtilling inflammatory cascade, and the secondary effect is our tightening. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Now, these different devices that you may have will range from, and not limited to, but radiofrequency, microcurrent, plasma fibroblasting. Like I said, I added HIFU in there as well, for those of you who are interested in HIFU, and also EMS. Not all of these will induce some type of trauma. So microcurrent EMS aren't overly, they're not traumatic. They have a different mechanism of action. I'll explain that later on. But radiofrequency, plasma fibroblasting, HIFU, all create a controlled trauma and also heat. So there's heat involved. So we're getting tightening and lifting. There are other devices, laser genesis, so long pulse lasers. There is also ablative treatments, but they come with a little bit of downtime. There is also IPL, so intense pulse light, and I'm sure I've missed a couple there, but there's other devices too. But our focus today is on 5 devices tonight. And if you have any queries and you're wondering, or you're wanting to learn about another device that I haven't mentioned, please feel free to let me know. Okay, so radiofrequency, probably one of my favorite modalities. It's such an easy device. It does not hurt. There we go. It doesn't actually hurt. If you've got bipolar radiofrequency, I'll explain the differences. If you've got bipolar radiofrequency, you might feel a little bit of it's not so much a sting. It might be a little bit of a zap, and it might get a bit bitey. But I'll explain the differences. But first of all, what radiofrequency does is it actually heats the dermis. Generally speaking, you have a positive and a negative polarity or transducer, and the energy oscillates from positive to negative at such a rate that it causes friction in our cells. And of course, when we have friction, we then have heat. And so this heat, one, triggers that inflammatory response, and 2, causes tightening in our collagen. So that's radiofrequency in a nutshell. There are different types that we have. We have monopolar, bipolar, and multipolar. Your monopolar will have the transducer, and we have a pad that we attach, or a rod that the client will be holding, and the energy will actually travel through the applicator down into the skin, and it's quite deep because of that return pad. It does enter, the heat goes into the dermis, so it's quite effective. A little bit old school, however, because all that energy does travel throughout the body. So lately, what's become more popular over the years was bipolar, where you've got the positive and negative, and you've got that energy going from one pole to another. The next generation of radio frequency is multipolar, which is an advanced bipolar. Technically speaking, it's still bipolar because there's only 2 poles. But what happens is you've got, usually it's 4 or more transducers where the energy will oscillate from one to the other poles. And so it's not just doing it in a path, so it's one direction, it's usually in multiple directions. And so we're getting this really even distribution of this thermal heating that is comfortable, that is safe. There's no zapping associated to it or with the actual treatment. And it feels like basically a hot stone massage. It's quite comfortable. You do need glycerine instead of conductive gel. Glycerine is an insulator, whereas conductive gel is a conductor. So the glycerine is going to make the treatment a lot more comfortable as well, whereas conductive gel, you'll still get a little bit of zapping occurring. So that's your radio frequency. And like I said, it's great for stimulating collagen. It's good for remodeling. And that's going to lead to skin tightening and wrinkle reduction. In terms of treatments, we're looking at, and it depends on the device, it could be anywhere with a multipolar device, such as this one that I've got pictured here. It'll only be, say, 4 to 6 treatments. With a bipolar, it might take a little bit longer. It might be anywhere from, say, 6 to 10 treatments. We do these weekly, and the treatment itself will take anywhere from half an hour, depending how big an area we do. If you're doing just the face, it could be half an hour, but if you're doing face and neck, it might be 45 minutes to an hour. So people are charging, or clinics are charging, anywhere from $300 to $400 for the treatment. And so in terms of consumable, there actually isn't, apart from your gliding medium, your glycerine. And like I said, the clients can come in, they have the treatment, they walk out, there's a little bit of redness, they look like they've been slightly sunburnt or sun-kissed. They can put a bit of minimal makeup on to hide the redness, but it's a walk-in, walk-out procedure, and it's quite effective. Instantly, and you can see in this photo here, there's an instant contraction of the collagen bundle, so it gives you an instant lift. However, that only lasts 3 days. And really, that's just a little bit of the inflammation, and that's just the contraction that's just temporary. The real results happen in that maturation phase, which typically can last anywhere, like I said earlier, not last, but you will be visible at 6 weeks, but real maturation and the collagen remodeling will really happen 3 months later. But you can start to see evidence at 6 weeks. So this one you can see here, that was after 1 treatment. You can see there's definition in the jaw. She might be smiling here, but nonetheless, I mean, I prefer my photos to be exactly the same, you know, not smiling one in the other. But if we look at her jawline and the definition there, it actually looks like she's raising her neck. So she's, you know, that sort of double chin that we've got there is actually gone. I do have more photos. I just didn't want to bombard you with lots of before and afters, but if you want to see them, I can show you. But moving on, you could be using this modality for non-surgical facelifting. It's a really good way to advertise. If you have on your social media or however you advertise non-surgical facelifting, it is legal. We can say that because it truly is non-surgical. We are lifting the face. So that's a really effective way of getting people to come in our clinics. Very long time ago, we used to do non-surgical breast lifting. And as long as you're treating above the nipple and up and not underneath where all the mammary glands are going to be. So if we're treating the upper part of the chest, and you'll get a lift in the actual breast tissue. If the client has very heavy breasts, it's not going to work. They actually need augmentation, right? They'll need surgical intervention. But if you've got someone who's lost elasticity and they've lost a little bit of volume and they're just wanting just a bit of a perk, who doesn't want a perk? If anyone wants a bit of a lift and it's subtle, then you could do a non-surgical breast lift. You could treat the body. So there's a difference between body skin remodeling or skin tightening and body contouring. So be careful of that. When we're doing body contouring, we make our temperatures, so our clinical endpoint is no longer between 39 and 41 degrees. Our clinical endpoint will be between 42 and 46 to instigate lipolysis or apoptosis, which is destruction of the fat cell. So we can do that with radiofrequency as well, but we're just talking about skin tightening now. So with skin tightening, you will only work within the temperatures of 39 to 41 degrees. And I do recommend you get a surface thermometer so you actually know what you're doing. Because if you're under 39, it's not going to work. If you're over 42, then you're actually getting fat reduction, which is the last thing you want to do in and around the face. And of course, radiofrequency is also good for cellulite reduction too. It softens that connective tissue and it creates angiogenesis, and we get more collagen and elastin being laid down. So it's not just for the face. There's so many clinical studies out there to prove and to show that radiofrequency does work. It's probably the gold standard. It has been for a very long time. In terms of safety, it is minimally invasive. It's got a very low risk profile. There's really not much in the way of adverse side effects that can go wrong. The only thing that can go wrong is if you leave the probe on the skin for an extended period of time without moving, you could burn someone. Or if you are using a bipolar applicator and you're slightly lifting, you may get an arc and you'll get a little bit of a graze. But really, the likelihood of you causing any adverse reaction or burns is quite low. And the beauty of radiofrequency is it's colorblind. What that means is you can treat skin types 1 right through to 6, and you don't have to worry about the client's Fitzpatrick. You do have to get them on inhibitors, of course, but the energy is not attracted to the color of their skin like laser and IPL is or are. And so it's quite suitable for all skin types. So that's radiofrequency. Next up, we have microcurrent. Microcurrent's a little bit different. It's in a league of its own because it's not actually causing trauma, not like our heat-based modalities. But nonetheless, it is still good for facial rejuvenation. And what microcurrent is and does, and it's quite I want to say old-fashioned device or modality technology that's now starting to really come back into the market. So we're seeing more and more microcurrent devices, and we're also seeing these new gloves come about as well. But basically what microcurrent does is it utilizes very low level electrical current, usually 400 amperes, which is very similar to our own body's electrical current, and it mirrors that current. So we're not harming, we're not causing trauma, we're not creating any damage. It's not painful at all. And what it does is it actually will do two things. Not only, well, actually does more than two, but the two main things for facial rejuvenation is it increases ATP, which is cellular energy, so adenine triphosphate, and how it offers non-surgical facelifting is by re-educating muscles. And so in some instances, so for example, on the face, where the masseters are, these muscles here elongate, and so we end up with jowls. So that elongates, and then we get these gels happening here in our 40s and 50s. And this muscle here around the mouth, the buccal, so that sort of one on the sides of the mouth, also actually become shorter. So they contract. These lengthen, and these here lengthen. So we get our hoods in the eyes, and this also shortens, right? So we get some shortening here. We get some lengthening and shortening pretty much in different parts of the face. And so we get this sagging that's happening. So with microcurrent, what we're doing is we're re-educating these muscles. We're shortening muscles in the cheek area. So we shorten. Here we lengthen. Here we shorten. Here we shorten. And here we lengthen, and we lengthen that way. If I can ask you just to put yourselves on mute, I would love that, please. I'm just getting a bit of feedback. Thank you. So with microcurrent, it's actually re-educating the muscles, and they do need a series of them. It could be anywhere from, say, 8 to 10. And like any muscle gym workout, you actually need to make sure that the client is coming back to keep that muscle in shape. So clients do love it. It's quite relaxing. There's no pain associated with it. You can do other things with microcurrent, such as infusing product into the skin. You can help with treating acne with it. This particular device also has a hair regeneration applicator. So there's a number of things that you can do, including lymphatic drainage. So you could do your lymphatic drainage with the prongs, or you can do your lymphatic drainage with the microcurrent gloves as well. I'll come to your comments in a second. So like I said, it's going to help with muscle tone. So radiofrequency helps with dermal tightening. This is working on a different level. It is re-educating muscles. So one's doing one thing, this is doing another thing. When you combine the two modalities together, you get amazing results, because we're targeting different depths of penetration. So it enhances facial muscle tone, promotes cellular growth, and encourages elastin and collagen production. Lots and lots of scientific backing and lots of research done on microcurrent for many, many years over the years. In terms of client experience, like I said, it's not painful, it's not invasive. They're not red. In fact, there is a setting where you can help with any facial flushing or redness, so you can normalize the skin. And it is an accumulative, in terms of results, there is an accumulation. So one treatment will give you a little bit of lifting, but doesn't last long. But it's like any muscle workout you do, it actually is accumulative. Let me have a look. How would microcurrent differ from LED? Let me go up. Deb, okay, so do they need to be on inhibitors for radiofrequency? My suggestion is anytime we're creating any type of trauma, so whether it's thermal, mechanical, or chemical, that anyone that's a skin type 4 or above should be on some type of inhibitor, because, and just in case you graze them, you burn them, which I'm sure you won't, but just in case, you know, that melanocyte activity is inhibited. While I'm here, let's talk about melasma. I might actually do a talk on melasma, a webinar on melasma. But if you've got someone who's got melasma, radiofrequency most likely will actually cause it to darken. So there are some limitations with thermal treatments. And definitely if you're going to be treating someone who's got melasma, you want that somewhat under control. They're on inhibitors, they're on brighteners, lighteners before we even think about doing radiofrequency. You do need to be careful, real strict with their products. Alexia, hey, all the way from Adelaide. How would microcurrent different from LED? So depending on the wavelength, LED, and I'm assuming you're talking about 633 nanometers, there's a chemical reaction that happens in the mitochondria similar to microcurrent, where it actually recharges, if you like, the cell's batteries. So what we call ATP, adenine triphosphate. So your LED will cover a large area over a very short amount of time, depending on the power of your device. Whereas microcurrent, you have to have the probes on the skin, and it's not where the probes hit the skin that the magic is happening. It is in between the probes. That's where the current is working, and that's where we're actually getting that ATP synthesis happening there. So the advantage of LED is we're doing a large area in a small amount of time, 10 minutes, whereas your microcurrent, you're holding the probe in position, or you could be moving it around for anywhere from 10 seconds, 15 seconds if we're doing muscle re-education. But if we're trying to trigger ATP, it could be 30 seconds to a minute per area. So it's more the time. What other differences? I would say the time and how much you can do in that space. Bell's palsy, microcurrent, yes, actually. So it does help with and I think there is a clinical paper that I'd read about microcurrent and Bell's palsy. So that's a yes. Rima, once you've done 10 sessions, could you have a break before you can do a new set? Yes, you could do. You don't have to completely do a whole new set. You would do maintenance. So once that muscle is re-educated, and it depends on, of course, what they're doing in terms of treatments as well. And if it's just, re-educating muscles, or we doing collagen induction treatments too. But 10 sessions, and then you might do a session every 2, or if they're older, might be less, but every 2 to 4 weeks. So you don't have to do a whole new set, immediately, if that makes sense. Okay. All right. So that is microcurrent. And the beauty about the gloves is down here. The beauty about the gloves is people are more wanting that tactile approach. They want to feel someone's, hands rather than metal. And so there is the gloves that you can use to also do not just lymphatic drainage, but muscle re-education as well. So that's you could do everything with the gloves too. The only thing you couldn't do is infusion with the gloves. You'd have to use the probes. Running out of time. Geez. Okay. Plasma. I love plasma. It's had such a bad rap over the years. I get it. It was banned in Canada. It became really not a pleasant treatment here because of all the pitting it was leaving, but that was due to application and misinformation and poor training. So if it's done right, and if the client is prepped properly, which they all should be, the results are actually incredible. And that photo down there, thank you to Dominique Leverington from Queensland. That is one treatment, and that was a full face done, not in the one time. It was like half and half, but you could see the eyelids are so much more retracted. The frown lines are so much softer. Yes, the lighting is a little bit brighter here, so it makes things look a bit better. But you can see that the nasolabials and the jowls, it looks like she's had a mini facelift. I think that's an excellent result. Now, how plasma works is it's the fourth state of matter. We have solids, liquids, gases, and the fourth state is plasma. It's all around us. If I rub my foot on the ground and I touch you, that transference of energy basically, and that zap is plasma. So that is what we're doing to create a thermal trauma. The only thing is this thermal trauma leaves a little carbon crust on the skin. So there's a little bit of downtime. It's roughly 5 to 7 days. It shouldn't be anything more than that, where the client's skin looks like they've had henna, you know, that henna tattooing. So that it doesn't look that bad, by the way, but it tiny little dots everywhere. And what that does is basically contracts the tissue, and it causes that controlled trauma or controlled wound to trigger that inflammatory response. And so we get really effective and instantaneous results, and they keep improving over the next 3 months. It's common for non-surgical blepharoplasty. The thinner the skin, the more attraction and the better results we get. And in terms of cost per treatment, it can be anywhere from $400 per treatment right through to $1,200. A neck is $1,200. A lip flip is $400. Upper eyes is $600, just to give you an idea. And eyes will take about 30, I don't know, without anesthetic. You need anesthetic for this, but it can take anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. So amazing return on investment, and the results are equally as amazing. Again, it's not addressing the muscle, and it's not addressing the deep dermis. So a multifaceted approach is what I'd be doing on my clients. If they want a true non-surgical facelift, I'd be looking at doing a couple of different modalities to really get that non-surgical, facelift happening or look happening. So long-term tightening, increase in production, there is limitations, skin types 1 right through to, I'd say, a light 5 who has been prepped properly. If they're a dark 5, they can't have this treatment because there's a lot of trauma. You'll end up with PAH. So there is some limitation, and definitely your clients need to be a good wound healer, because we are creating a little bit of that trauma. So it's really important. LED beforehand, lots of products, vitamin A, B, C, 2 to 4 weeks before. How effective is plasma for nose thinning? We don't really teach it. I mean, I can show you how to do it. We're talking real thin skin. So unless their nose has dropped, and, our nose does get bigger with age, but you're going to get a little bit of a snatch is what they call it these days. You're going to get a little bit of a contour and minor retraction of the skin. Are you going to really thin the nose so it looks more pointy? I'm not convinced. So it's not something that we go on about or we teach, because I just don't think the results are incredible and they're not long lasting. But if your client, is okay to have a snatched nose for 3 months, then, maybe it's okay if they're willing to spend that kind of money. Hopefully that answers your question. I've seen it on, socials, but I'm not a fan. HIFU. So really quickly, HIFU, and then we've got EMS. So HIFU is high intensity focused ultrasound. And basically what this does is, using ultrasound energy, it causes coagulation points, or it causes microthermal zones. And we're reaching temperatures of roughly 60 to 70 degrees. So there's a lot of heat there, but it's delivered over a really, really short amount of time. It's usually like half a second. So we're not burning the skin. What we're doing is we're bypassing all the top layers, and that energy becomes focused right down depending on the depth of penetration. Now, for non-surgical facelifting, I'd recommend the 4.5 cartridge. The 4.5 cartridge, and that's 4.5 mils, bypasses all the tissue, and it goes down to what we call our SMAS. The SMAS is a superficial muscular apneurotic system, which is that muscle that you can feel. So here you feel bone. If you go a little bit further down, you can start to feel muscle. So it's this muscle that starts here, and it's that muscle that ends there. Now, it depends on the age of the person. If you're anywhere, you know, I'm 1 year off 50 and I can feel my jowl starting to drop. And so, you know, that muscle ends here. So with HIFU, you would just treat that area. You can treat all the face with different cartridges or different depths, but it's the 4.5 that's going to give you that real lifting in that the jowls, right? I have only done half of my face, and I'm pretty sure you can tell which half, and I need to get it fixed. But that was one treatment, and that was March last year. So you can see my nasolabial is a lot softer on this side. My eyebrow is higher on this side. I have more of a contour on this side. So like I said, that was one treatment with 3 different depths that I did. And I need to fix this side because I'm lopsided. So seeing is believing. Great way to sell HIFU, right? So with HIFU, like I said, it doesn't affect the epidermis. It actually bypasses it. So they can basically come in during their lunch. It's a walk in, walk out. There's no real downtime. They, however, do feel a little bit tender for roughly 2 weeks. Could feel tender. But apart from that, they might be a little bit inflamed, a little bit sun-kissed. In some instances, you may get a little bit of bruising. However, that is uncommon unless they're on blood thinners, and the bruises generally will last, you know, roughly 3 days. So it's not, you know, 5 or 7 days that the bruises are there, and it can be covered with makeup. They're a yellow bruise rather than a purple bruise. Like I said, rare. So that really is the 4.5 cartridge is used for lifting the SMAS. When we use our 3 ml cartridge, which is going down to our dermis, you can only do this on someone who's got nice, thick dermal integrity. Otherwise, you're going to be causing lipolysis and you're going to be melting fat, which is not good. So if you've got someone who's got thin skin, we do not do the 3 ml on anyone. We'll sort of forego that, and we just skip to our 1.5. But if they've got good skin and they're prepped properly, we could do our 3 ml, and that's going to help with dermal remodeling, whilst our 1.5 ml cartridge is just actually going slightly under the papillary layer, and it's giving you a bit of a glow, a freshen up. So you could do one, or you could do all 3 cartridges. And what I love about HIFU is you can combine it with other modalities. So if I want to do the 4.5 with needling, or if I want to do 4.5 with microcurrent, or I could do it with IPL, I could do it with radiofrequency. And that way I'm targeting all the different depths of the skin to really give that sort of lifting, tightening effect, that non-surgical facelift to my client. So microcurrent, remember, is muscle re-education. It's tightening and lengthening. HIFU, you would only use it here, where we would tighten the SMAS, the same muscle. You would tighten that here. You're looking at 1 to 3 treatments. That's it. And they're coming in every 6 months or so. So it's not a treatment that you're going to be regularly doing like your microcurrent. In terms of costing, it could be anywhere between $600 to $1,500 per treatment. Okay. And then we've got EMS, so electromuscular stimulation, which is very different once again. So this is more toning. It's not re-educating the muscle. It is bulking the muscle, if you will. So with EMS, it delivers tiny little pulses to cause contractions of the muscle. It's like instead of doing 100 sit-ups in, I don't know how long it takes you. I probably could never do that anyway. But instead of 100 sit-ups taking you, I don't know, half an hour, the muscle is being contracted with this machine, and it can perform 1,000 contractions in that same space of time. So when applying that theory to the face, what it's doing is you feel the little contractions happening to the face, and it causes our muscles to contract and to contour and bulk up a little bit. All right, so a little bit different from microcurrent, and also different from your HIFU. So in terms of application, like I said, you're going to get a bit of, it's not lifting, because we're bulking, you then get the lifting. So it's not actually doing anything to our skin, it's all muscle. And so because we're bulking the skin, your actual not facial features, but the actual skin itself, our face looks like it's been lifted because of the bulking. Hopefully that makes sense. Studies indicate that consistent EMS treatments can result in a more defined jawline, elevated cheekbones, and overall facial rejuvenation. We tend to only do this on the lower half of the face. And it is very safe for all skin types because it is colorblind once again. And so anyone who is wanting to do a treatment like this, who's a darker Fitzpatrick, or who is sensitive to other treatments, or doesn't really sort of want to endure a little bit of pain, then this is fairly pain-free. All right, let's have a look at our chat. Okay, Louisa. How are you, Louisa? All right. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of insight into some of my favorite modalities and how quite different they actually are. But when you combine them together, they can actually give you really profound results, I believe. And so